Hello everyone, welcome to Mr. Smelly's Fragrance Reviews. Unfortunately this week I've been the subject of historical sex allegations. Unfortunately my ex-wife has alleged, and I'm afraid it's true, that during our intimate times together I insisted on dressing as various historical figures, including Napoleon Bonaparte, Julius Caesar, and on occasions Benito Mussolini. So I'm afraid that I am guilty of historical sex. Hi everyone, so we got some really cold weather here. It's winter at last, and today we're going to be looking at my top 5 winter fragrances. Hi everyone, so today we're going to be looking at my top 5 winter fragrances for this year. What I thought I'd do this year is something slightly different. I was looking at a lot of the top 10 and top 5 videos and I didn't feel that inspired just to pick my top 10 or top 5. I've done an autumn top 5 already. All of those choices really would work well for the winter time. There's not, what's the difference really between autumn and winter? So I thought, let's pick, for me, the 5 best winter fragrances of all time, one from each of the last 5 decades. So the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, and the 2010s. Right? That's the decade we're in now. Is that what we call it? I think so. A couple of honourable mentions first. The first one is one from a really recent fragrance, and that is going to be RASASI's DAAREJ. So DAAREJ from RASASI is compared very often to Valentino V, a fragrance from the 2000, I think it was 2006 that one came out. And RASASI DAAREJ has notes of cardamom, artemisia rose, sandalwood, vanilla, tonka and amber. It's a really nice oriental spicy fragrance. It's very sweet, but it's got a certain woody sophistication about it. It's very, very pleasant, and I bought this as about £20 here in the UK, or roughly equivalent prices around the world. RASASI do a great job of cloning other fragrance houses' stuff. I have a little small sample of Valentino V, and if you're looking just for a really young, sort of young, modern, playful, but somewhat sophisticated fragrance with some lovely tonka bean and vanilla, a bit of spiciness, a true oriental that does have a bit of an oriental air about it, but is likable and really has great performance. It's an eau de parfum, I think, yeah, and it does the longevity and projection really good on this one. RASASI DAAREJ, definitely an honourable mention that doesn't fit into my overall category because I had a slightly better one from the modern era, but that is definitely a good choice. The other one that I wanted to put in there, which was in last year's top 5 winter list, is Bois de Portugal from Creed. I think it's been recently discontinued, but you can still buy it. I think it's still out there in the old size bottles of 75ml and 120ml. What a brilliant old school fragrance this one is, from 1987. Top note of bergamot. There's lavender. It's a kind of almost a barbershop kind of smell, but it's got more to it than that. There's cedarwood and sandalwood done to great effect. Ambergris and vetiver in this one. A real traditional masculine fragrance, but with a lot of depth and woodiness, and this kind of old school classy air, reputedly Frank Sinatra's signature scent, and indeed it just has that old school, old money kind of class smell. So Creed's Bois de Portugal, if you're looking for a Creed for winter with a really strong projection, it's a bit of an all-rounder, so that's why it didn't really, it's only an honourable mention because it can work in spring and autumn too. But it's a heavy smelling Creed that has this real old masculine sophistication about it, and reminds me a little bit of vintage Chanel Pour Monsieur. So if you like that kind of thing, you want that with a bit more performance, Creed's Bois de Portugal, brilliant choice for the mature gentleman in the winter months. But now let's get into the list. So I'm going to do one from the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s and 2010s. So my favourite winter appropriate scent from the 1970s, I'm going with Givenchy Gentleman, the vintage formulation. What a scent this is, what a sophisticated, heavy scent this is, but a really, really sexy, old school masculine fragrance. So the notes in this one include tarragon, cinnamon, patchouli, vetiver, civet, the animalic note from the cat's backside, civet cat, Russian leather. It's a real old school leather fragrance. There is some honey, lemon, and vanilla. I do get that kind of honey lemon accord in the beginning, and there is this sweetness from the vanilla, but it's got a little bit of that funky kind of animalic, kinky kind of smell. That leather. It's that old school French cologne kind of fragrance that has this 70s sexiness, this masculinity about it. And if you can get the vintage formula, which comes in a bottle that looks like this in a box like this one's from the 90s, that is better than today's modern formulation. And I say that because I do have a more recent post 2000 formula. It's still quite a good fragrance. Some people say it's no good at all now, but it's still decent, but not quite what it used to be. So if you can track down on eBay a vintage Givenchy Gentleman, that is one of the real masculine classics, quite unlike anything out there. If you want to go right back to the mid 70s, 74, this one is really, really classy. Hairs on your chest, and it's got niche quality, I think, if you can get an old vintage bottle like this. So Givenchy Gentleman, my pick for the winter from the 1970s. Okay, so moving into the 1980s. Had to be, didn't it? Chanel ANTAEUS, absolute classic fragrance from 1981. So this one does open with some freshness. There's lemon, lime, and bergamot listed in the notes. Castoreum from Abiva's nether regions is the animalic note in this one. And if you like Kouros, this is a bit like Kouros, but a slightly smartened up version of Kouros from Yves Saint Laurent. I think it's superior. Patchouli, clary sage, thyme, basil, labdanum, and oak moss feature in this one. It's got a kind of dark, it's got this really extremely dark blue or maybe black bottle, and it's that kind of smell. It's got a real depth about it, this one. A real old school classiness, but to me I don't find there's that off-putting, people say a pissy note in Kouros. I don't think it smells like piss, Kouros, but I can see what they mean. It's a little bit Jim Locker-ish, and this one I just think it's tidied it up. But you know, I don't think the people who made ANTAEUS were copying Kouros. It's an absolutely classic fragrance in its own right, but it does share that 80s, early 80s masculinity, but it's got a real heaviness, a real classiness about it. And it's the kind of thing, you know, if you think of a classy early 80s gangster, if you think of someone in Goodfellas or the Godfather film, it has that real heavy, masculine, don't mess with me kind of vibe, but in a classy way. I love this fragrance. A really, really good fragrance. Stands the test of time today. Young guys, you can wear this. Have some balls. Wear this. Don't overlook this in favour of all the kind of bubblegummy kind of scents out there. You want to stand out from the crowd. ANTAEUS from Chanel. Still worth checking out. This is the modern formulation. It's not vintage, and it's absolutely fantastic. I haven't tried the old one, but I love the modern formulation. So ANTAEUS from 1981. Moving forward then, we're going in to the 1990s, and my choice from that decade for a real heavy winter scent has to be OPIUM Pour Homme the Eau de Parfum from Yves Saint Laurent. The notes are written on the back as a tester, so I'm going to read them out. Vanille Bourbon, so that's Bourbon vanilla. Anise, there's Cassis, that's a blackcurrant note, so it's got a strong blackcurrant and aniseedy licorice note and vanilla, so it's sweet, it's heavy, it's got Szechuan pepper, and it's got some Atlas cedarwood. Really kind of thick, rich scent, kind of a gourmand before gourmands really came in for men, but it's got an element of gourmandishness. Blackcurrant, cedarwood, vanilla, almost kind of boozy smelling. OPIUM is the right name. It's an intoxicating scent. It's the men's version of OPIUM, the women's version, and this is the Eau de Parfum, the vintage version. Do check out today's modern Eau de Toilette, and there is an Eau de Parfum that's a bit hard. None of them are terrible, but I guess if you can find the old 90s Eau de Parfum, that is really, really strong and brilliant stuff. But all the versions of OPIUM are very, very intoxicating, rich, masculine scents, and they're quite unlike anything that's being released today. So OPIUM Pour Homme from 1995, the Eau de Parfum that I was lucky to pick up here secondhand. That's my pick for winter fragrances from the 1990s. Now let's move in to the current century, the 21st century. My pick of 21st century from let's say from 2000 to 2010, the first decade of the 21st century. Cheated a bit here because in my autumn video, and I've said before, all the ones in the autumn video would work in winter because it's bullshit, isn't it? Autumn, winter, there's not that much of a delineation between seasons, but BOGART Pour Homme had to be in my list for winter still. It was top of my autumn list, and it's really just one of the best cold weather scents all round. Kind of a cherry tobacco smell, most people say. It's got tonka bean in here and lavender. It's a little bit synthetic smelling, but it has an incredible performance. You can really only buy it online. It's a real cheapie, about 15, 18 pounds in the UK, equivalent prices around the world. Barbershop smell, Jean Paul Gaultier Le Mal mixed with Thierry Mugler's Pure Havane, hint of Xerjoff Naxos in there, not quite the same quality, but massive projection, really kind of rich masculine smell. Interesting, classy, a little bit of sweetness, a little bit of a barbershop vibe. I love Bogart PORTUGAL, and it has to be in there. As honestly, compared to anything else that came out between 2000 and 2010, this is my favourite. Forget La Nuit de l'Homme from Yves Saint Laurent and, you know, Dolce & Gabbana, the one. Nah, that's much better. So for the 2010s onwards, it has to be for me Dior Homme Parfum. Dior Homme Parfum is the perfection of the Dior Homme line, the classic fragrance featuring iris, the kind of lipstick-esque note. And with the Parfum version, the intense version, took the original Eau de Toilette, richened it up a little bit, made it into an Eau de Parfum formulation. This one made it even more so and put some leather in there, gives it a more masculine vibe, but still with that really distinctive iris note, that lipstick-esque note. But this one's got ambrette seed, it's got vanilla, it's got leather. We have rose and cedarwood and sandalwood. So it's woody, it's masculine. It still hangs on to that Dior Homme essence of the iris thing, but it's somehow made it a bit more hair on your chest, a bit more masculine. Really rich, incredible performance, beast mode fragrance. So Dior Homme Parfum, my #1 fragrance from the most recent decade, the one that we're in now, has to be this one from Dior. And it's hard to try it in the shops. They don't seem to have it in many brands. You have to go to a big store when they've got a Dior boutique. But it's an absolutely brilliant fragrance, right up there with the exclusive range from Dior. But only at a sort of regular designer price, slightly at the high end of designer prices. Fantastic fragrance. So these are my top 5 with a couple of honourable mentions for the winter time. Let me know what you think of my choices. I think they're all fantastic, really strong performing. All of them perform really well, the ones that I've mentioned, and they have this real air of masculinity, depth and guts about them, which I think is what you need in the winter. So remember, whatever we're doing in life, let's project. I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.